In an earlier video, I reviewed the Rolleicord and the Rolleiflex, going over what made them special and how its shooting experience shaped the kinds of pictures that they made. In this video, we're going to take a look at the camera that I referenced in that video as being the more formal one. The picture-making machine, the beauty, the beast, the Hasselblad 500cm. Today we're going to go over everything about this camera, the things that make it really special, and we're also going to compare it to a Rolleiflex 2.8F to see which might be a better fit for you. So let's jump right in. All the pictures that you're about to see were developed with the Cinestill CS41 kit at home on a rotary processor. At one point of time, just a few decades ago, the Hasselblad and the Rolleiflex were pretty much the best cameras that money could buy, the forefront of picture-making technology that mankind could offer. And even to this day, these cameras are still so iconic and tremendously popular, and for good reason. They still make incredible pictures, and functionally, they've stood the test of time. So if you're looking to get deep into the square format 6x6, this is pretty much amongst the best options that you could go for. And despite being over 60 years old, these cameras feel and operate beautifully, so let's start off with that. The first thing that I absolutely love about the Hasselblad is how it feels in the hands. It has a nice sense of weight and mass to it, and it just sits really nicely in your hands when you're using it. When you go to make a picture, you press a single button, and the top springs open, and then you focus, and then you shoot, and then you advance the frame of film. And how nice is that? To me, to this day, I've been using this camera for a while, and it's still amongst the nicest feeling cameras that still excites me. And if you're able to get a good condition, well-serviced and lubricated 500cm, to me it's amongst the nicest feeling cameras I've ever used. Now the Rolleiflex feels good too, but in a different way. The Hasselblad feels more heavily built, slightly more dense and solid, while the Rolleiflex feels a bit more delicate. Now not in a fragile way, but a more precise mechanical kind of intricate way. It's kind of like the Hasselblad feels like a rugged practical watch, while the Rolleiflex feels like a solid pocket watch. Both robust and durable, but in different ways. And don't think for a moment that the Rolleiflex is a delicate camera, because these guys were preferred by wartime photographers and were used in some of the toughest conditions, so from a reliability perspective, these things are amazing. But physically, there is a difference in terms of how they feel in the hands. And the difference in physical feel, to me, produces the biggest difference between these two cameras. Now, I briefly talked about this in the earlier video on the Rolleicord, but we're going to expand on that today. Something about the mass, and more importantly, the inertia of each camera, alters the way that each camera physically feels in the hands, which in turn exerts almost like a pressure or an influence on how you use it, which then shapes how the resulting pictures feel. Because the Rolleiflex is a box, when you pivot it about, it kind of pivots around a single point. It doesn't have that sense of inertia. It feels very zippy and quick, like you're driving a very lightweight, fast car. It feels casual, almost like a medium format camera that allows for snapshots. With the Hasselblad, it's weighty, it's dense, it's long, and it sits down into your hands, so changing direction feels like you almost need to turn your body, and that sense of inertia makes it feel slower. Almost like you're maneuvering a much heavier weighted car, and that sense of slowness becomes a part of picture making, neither better or worse. One feels slightly more formal, and another feels slightly more informal. And by formal, I mean that sense of, okay, I'm making a picture now, let me make sure everything is lined up nicely, make sure my composition is good, make sure I'm doing everything okay, and then I made a picture, you know, that sense of formality. But with the Rolleiflex, it just feels like, oh. And you also get a sense of that in the difference in how their shutters sound. The shutter in the Rolleiflex is much quieter, it's like picture, while the Hasselblad is like picture. And this difference between formality and informality is quite hard to articulate. So to expand on that a little more, I'm going to show you a few different picture books. There are many great books that have a sense of formality in them, but one that is my favorite would be Uncommon Places by Stephen Shore. With each picture, you get this sense that everything is meticulous, rigorous. The camera was so carefully and precisely placed, and the composition of every picture feels premeditated and very well thought out. Formally structured, like a well-strung together sentence with beautiful vocabulary, almost academic but not in a bad way, still filled with expression and beauty. Then on the other end of the spectrum, a book with a strong sense of informality would be this. This is a book on a collection of pictures made by children who knew nothing about photography, who were encouraged to go around taking pictures of anything and everything. And despite not knowing any formal technique, these are some of the most expressive and powerful pictures that I've ever seen. If Stephen Shore's pictures were complex sentences, then these would almost just be sounds, inarticulated expressions, but expressions nonetheless. And despite these children knowing nothing about composition, lighting, advanced techniques of photography, these pictures carry such a potency in them, a pure connection with the medium of photography that is so strong, as strong or sometimes stronger than any picture made by some name brand, famous, super experienced, or technically skilled photographer. So those two books come to mind when trying to describe two ends of that spectrum, one very formal and one very informal. Neither better or worse, and both are amongst my favorite picture books of all time that has significantly shaped my personal picture making. But those are the two extremes, and it's not like the Hasselblad is large format and then the Rolleicord is a plastic camera. Both are medium format cameras, both shoot medium format film, so they sit really closely together, but one is kind of tilting slightly towards the formal side of things and one is tilting very slightly towards the informal side of things. Now moving on, the next thing that I really love about the Hasselblad 500cm is the interchangeable backs. To me, this is the biggest thing that makes this camera amazing as a camera from a practicality point of view. For me, when I'm out shooting, I primarily shoot in black and white film, but there are times for certain scenes where color as a descriptor is at the very heart of what I'm trying to make a picture of. And for those moments, I always want to have color film around. So when I'm not using the Hasselblad, I mostly use two cameras, a Leica with moderately high-speed black and white film for quick moments, and a slower camera, a larger format, something with more resolution. Most of the time, it's a Pentax 6.7 loaded with color film in it. So that's two cameras. But when using the Hasselblad, instead of needing two, you just need one. With its interchangeable backs, you could load one bag with Delta 100, another bag with 3200 speed film, another with Ekta, another with Portra, and you could have enough film for every single situation. And that versatility and practicality makes it really amazing. So those are the two things that I absolutely love about the Hasselblad. Now, how does it directly compare with a Rolleiflex? Well, first off, there are many similarities between them. Both cameras are going to give you access to the same focal length made by the same company, a 80mm f2.8 Zeiss lens. With the Rolleiflex 2.8F, you could get one in a Schneider Xenotara lens, and that's really good as well. Both are going to give you great results, but with the Hasselblad, you have an interchangeable lens system. So you could use wide-angle lenses or telephoto lenses on the Hasselblad as well. Both are fully mechanical cameras, and being so popular, most experienced camera technicians would have some experience between them, so they're kind of on par with each other from a reliability and serviceability point of view. Now, they are different in several significant ways. Firstly, the Hasselblad, what you're seeing is exactly what you're making a picture of, while with the Rolleiflex, because it's a TLR, when placing objects closer to the camera, there will be some vertical discrepancy between what you're seeing and what you're making a picture of. In terms of price and accessibility, as of making this video, they're roughly the same price for an average condition piece. It's a little harder to find a 2.8F in really good condition, so mint Rolleiflexes go for much more, and in general it's a little easier to source a good condition working Hasselblad 500cm. So in terms of accessibility, the Hasselblad is slightly more available. The last difference between them, arguably the smallest one, is how each advances a frame of film. With the Rolleiflex, you go back and forth with a very smooth motion, and you don't really physically feel anything in terms of tactile sensations. It just feels very smooth and buttery. It's nice too, but with the Hasselblad, when you turn that knob, it clicks very nicely. And you actually feel those gears when advancing a frame of film, which I absolutely love. So not a huge deal, but if you're a camera nerd like me, that's something to take note of as well. Now, from a purely picture quality and rendering perspective, they're really, really close. But to me, the Rolleiflex comes out ahead by a tiny margin. I don't mean in terms of sharpness or resolving power, but from my time with them, there's just something special about the lens in the Rolleiflex. It renders scenes with clarity, with crispness, three-dimensionality while still retaining a sense of charm and character. And it's amongst my favorite lenses of all time. Now don't get me wrong, the Hasselblad has an amazing lens too, but the Rolleiflex to me has almost like a special sauce that pushes it just ahead of the Hasselblad. But that said, I know of photographers who prefer the lens in the Hasselblad over the one in the Rolleiflex, so both are good and I'm sure that either option won't let you down. So which is for you, the Rolleiflex or the Hasselblad? Well, if you're a stickler about weight, you're the kind of person who buys a 150 gram lens instead of a 200 gram lens, or maybe you prefer a casual, faster feeling camera, then you might be happy with the Rolleiflex because of how compact it is. But if you're someone who doesn't mind the weight, maybe you're already used to using a camera like the Pentax 6.7, and the idea of bringing around a few more film bags with different kinds of film really excites you, then I think you'd really enjoy the Hasselblad. For me, there are times when it's just another regular day in life and I'm out doing something else, and I don't really want a camera to be in the way. The Rolleiflex fits into a tiny bag with still space to spare, and so for how compact it is, its nimbleness and its quickness, I'll choose the Rolleiflex. Then there are other times when I'm going out to make pictures, to actively engage with photography as an activity and as a medium. For those situations, I always find myself reaching for the Hasselblad. At the end of the day, both cameras are amazing and you won't go wrong with either choice. If you have experience with either camera, let me know which you prefer in the comment section and why you love each one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.